space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Star Trek universe. As its ongoing mission approaches its 50th anniversary, we do a special retrospective and a preview of Star Trek Into Darkness.
Hi, I'm Brenna.
Hi, I'm Scott.
And I'm Salim, and we're here to talk Star Trek.
Yes.
The latest in the franchise, Into Darkness, is coming out in May, and although we haven't just seen it, we are very excited about it.
We are extremely excited about it. We're also excited to have Scott back on the show. We
Film
hear
critic
you're
for Access Hollywood. Great to be here talking about my favorite subject.
You start us off. Tell us why you love the show.
Listen, I have been a Star Trek fan since I was 6 years old. First episode I ever saw was Mirror Mirror. Spock has the goatee. It's the evil Enterprise, and I was immediately hooked. Love the movies, love Next Generation. Not so much a fan of Voyager, Deep Space Nine, or Enterprise, but I love the original series and the movies and JJ's reboots.
Mm-hmm. I'm right there with you. I'm a fan from childhood, although I didn't get to watch it when it originally aired. I watched it with my dad growing up a lot, because we're both really big sci-fi and fantasy nerds. And I'm predominantly original series fan, but I enjoy some Next Generation because Sir Patrick Stewart is pretty awesome.
The Star franchise for me to watch was Star Wars, because that was the first thing that I had watched. And for me, it had the action, it had the adventure, it had Boba Fett. And Star Trek, unfortunately, it didn't have all of that. It had this huge story that I didn't have the time to kind of get into from the beginning. That's why when the 2009 version came out, I loved it. It had everything that I would have wanted in Star Trek. It had the action, the adventure, the explosions, but then I also got to learn about these incredible characters that I've heard about for so long.
But the thing is, that makes you the perfect candidate for that last movie, because that needed to be a movie for people who didn't like Star Trek, didn't know anything about Star Trek, and it succeeded on those levels. It was a Star Trek movie for people who don't like Star Trek.
So let's talk about why we love Star Trek. The cast is extremely diverse. You have Nichelle Nichols, Ricardo Montalban, you have George Takei, and in the 60s, mind you.
Yeah.
This show aired during the tail end of the Civil Rights Movement, and having these sort of strong characters in a genre that was something other than a sitcom was really important.
I loved the characters. I aspired to be like Kirk, Spock, McCoy, especially Kirk. Here was a man of action. Here was a man of passion. Here's a man who got the girl every other week. But he was a man who always said and did the right thing. People looked up to him. He always had the answers. And William Shatner's delivery, his monologues, were so inspiring. I mean, he just was such a great role model. To this day, I still think of him as a great role model.
In watching the 2009 film, I was able to see the beginnings of a lot of these characters and these themes, which I didn't know was in the original show. And I feel like if I would have known, I would have watched it, because sci-fi at its best talks about all of these issues. And I love when sci-fi talks about these types of issues. So the fact that they did that in the TV series a long time ago, I would love to watch it. It's just like I'm sure a lot of people who didn't, or who weren't that versed in Star Trek, would probably love to get into it as well.
But look, this is a good way for us to segue into the new film. Okay, now, we were big Trekkers. You were not. We all loved the film because it satisfied on both levels. This was a movie that, with the later Star Trek TV shows and later films, everything started to feel stale. People were burned out on Star Trek fatigue, something no one ever thought would happen. It needed to go away. People needed to get hungry for Star Trek again, and it needed a fresh set of eyes to make it fun and vibrant again. Enter J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot, and that's what that movie did.
Usually whenever I hear that a reboot or a remake is announced of something that I care about, I am automatically nervous and scared because I'm really passionate about the things that I like. And when I heard that there was going to be a Star Trek reboot, I was terrified because these are my favorite characters, this is the show that I love, and they're going to mess up Spock, and that was what I was most worried about. But they didn't, actually, and they did the exact opposite. They brought them back to life.
When I first heard about Star Trek, I was like, oh, okay, they're rebooting it. This is yet another reboot. But then I saw the previews, and I was like, this is exactly what I've been wanting in Star Trek. It has a whole Star Wars feel to it, but looks 10 times better.
Yeah.
And then I went into it, and I was blown away. I'm a screenwriter, so I'm paying attention to how good the writing is. It was spot on. It was tight. The first scene shows you how emotional it's going to be, shows you how funny it's going to be, shows you the weight of the emotions. And I was shocked. And then by the end of the film, with the whole alternate universe, I was just impressed with taking the time to really appreciate the fans, but then also bringing it so that someone like me could also love it.
Yeah, that was J.J. Abrams' most shining moment, was when he decided that this film was going to be in its own world.
Now that the reboots thing is completely finished. Now you can really get into telling just a good story. Good story.
Yeah.
That brings us to Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yep.
Everybody's back. The gang's all here. The band is back together. JJ's directing again. Same writers, including Damon Lindelof. And, you've got this villain played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Golden Globe nominee for Sherlock.
Yeah.
Maybe he's Khan. Maybe he's Gary Mitchell.
I'm leaning more towards Benedict Cumberbatch being Khan because in the newest trailer, he looks at Kirk and says, "I'm better than you."
I am better.
At what?
Everything.
It could also be backed up by genetic engineered awesomeness.
There has been a lot of speculation about Benedict Cumberbatch's character. I want to be surprised. In the last film, when Spock is on the bridge and he's revealing that this Romulan ship from the future has altered our destinies, and I went, oh my gosh, they're doing their own thing. I want to have that moment when Spock's mother died. I want to have that moment of surprise when Spock and Uhura embraced. I want to have moments of surprise. If Benedict Cumberbatch is Khan, then okay, great. Khan is a great character. Would I have liked to have seen them do something completely different because they can do something different? Why retell a story that was already done when you can do whatever you want?
Even if it is or isn't, I still think that it's probably going to blow us all away.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's go around and give our final thoughts.
I think Star Trek Into Darkness is poised to be one of the greatest sci-fi sequels of all time, up there with The Empire Strikes Back and Aliens.
I think that you should see it on opening night at midnight with your friends and in uniform.
Star Trek, believe it or not, gives me what I used to love and hope for in the original Star Wars franchise. Tight writing, an incredible world. Definitely see it.
I think we're all excited for it.
all excited for it?
Yeah.
Cheers.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper indeed.
I was way more of a Star Wars fan growing up. Star
What?
Trek. Yeah, I mean...
Take care of this guy.